My sister-in-law hired private detectives to prove that I was lying about my company. She planned to humiliate me at the New Year's Eve party. But when the agents walked in, they didn't bring evidence. They brought handcuffs. The band's music was loud in my backyard. 80 people were laughing, toasting, celebrating the close of another year. I held a glass of sparkling cider in my right hand and smiled as I greeted my employees, my friends, my family. But inside, my heart was beating with the precision of someone who knows they are about to witness something terrible. Then I saw her. Barbara crossed the main door with that smile I knew all too well, that smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was dressed in black, as if she had come to a funeral. And maybe she had. Maybe she had come to mine. Behind her, two men in dark suits, serious, with leather briefcases. One of them wore dark sunglasses, even though it was already night. The other checked his watch every few seconds, as if he was in a hurry to finish a dirty job. My sister-in-law walked straight toward me. She crossed the dance floor, dodged the servers, and ignored the greetings. Her heels clacked against the stones of the patio like hammer blows. I felt all eyes begin to follow her. Conversations dropped in volume. Someone asked the musician to lower the trumpet. When she arrived in front of me, she stopped. She looked me up and down with that contempt she had perfected over 5 years. 5 years since her brother, Robert, married my daughter, Caroline. 5 years of poisoned comments, of questions disguised as concern, of visits that felt like interrogations. "Donna," she said my name as if it were an accusation. What a nice party. It must have cost a fortune. I didn't answer right away. I just held her gaze. I learned a long time ago that silence can be more powerful than any word. "I suppose when you have so much money," she continued, raising her voice so others could hear, "it's easy to spend on parties, although one wonders, where does all that money really come from?" There it was, the first public stab. I felt my daughter, Caroline, approaching from the other side of the yard. I saw the worry on her face, the fear, the confusion, and something else that broke my heart: doubt. "Barbara," I said in a calm voice, although my hands were trembling, "if you have something to tell me, this is not the place or the time." She laughed, a short, sharp laugh, designed to humiliate. "It's not the time. Oh, Donna, that's precisely why I chose this moment, because it is time for everyone to know the truth." She snapped her fingers. The two men in suits stepped forward. One opened his briefcase, the other pulled out a bulky folder of documents. "These gentlemen," Barbara announced, turning to the guests as if she were the star of a play, "are private investigators. I hired them 3 months ago to investigate the finances of my dear sister-in-law." The backyard fell into complete silence. Even the band stopped playing. 80 pairs of eyes watched me, some with pity, others with morbid curiosity. My employees looked at me with disbelief. My accountant, old Mr. Stevens, had turned pale. And do you know what they discovered? Barbara savored every word. Fraud, falsified documents, fund diversion. My sister-in-law, this woman who pretends to be an honest business owner, has been stealing, and not just any amount, $3,800,000. Caroline let out a choked cry. Robert, her husband, held her by the shoulders. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the ground. "Barbara, this is ridiculous," I managed to say, although my voice sounded weaker than I would have liked. "Ridiculous?" She moved closer, so close that I could smell her expensive perfume, the one she always wore to show she also had class. "Here is the proof. Altered bank statements, ghost contracts, fake invoices. All with your signature, Donna. All with your name." The men began pulling out papers, sheets and sheets that they displayed in front of everyone as if they were evidence in a trial. I recognized some documents, others I had never seen in my life. "I came here tonight," Barbara continued, "because I thought you deserved the chance to confess, in front of everyone, to admit what you've done, to apologize to your daughter before this reaches the authorities." At that moment, something broke inside me. It wasn't rage, it wasn't fear, it was something worse. A mix of betrayal, exhaustion, and sadness, so deep that I felt the ground opening beneath my feet. 67 years. 67 years of working honestly, of building my company from scratch, of embroidering tablecloths at 3 in the morning when my hands were bleeding, of selling door to door, of picking myself up after my husband died, and the world told me it was too late for me. And now this. I looked at my daughter. She looked back at me with tears in her eyes. But she didn't come closer. She didn't defend me. She just stood there, paralyzed, next to her husband, next to the brother of the woman who was destroying my life. Barbara smiled. She had won, or so she thought. "Now," she said, crossing her arms, "I'm going to give you two options, Donna. You either sign the company over to Caroline tonight to protect her from your crimes, or we call the police." The backyard remained silent. I felt 80 pairs of eyes waiting for my response. And then I heard something, a sound I would recognize anywhere. Sirens. Barbara frowned. The two men in suits exchanged nervous glances. The sirens were getting closer, louder and louder. "What?" Barbara turned toward the entrance. Red and blue lights illuminated the walls of my house. 2 patrol cars, 4 uniformed officers, and behind them, 2 men with jackets that said District Attorney in gold letters. But what satisfied me most was seeing the expression on Barbara's face when one of the DA agents approached. Not me. Her. If you want to know how I got to that moment, how I went from being the victim to completely turning the tables, and what I really discovered about my sister-in-law, subscribe to the channel and stick around until the end. Because this story is just beginning. But before I tell you how that night ended, I need you to understand how it all started. Because my story doesn't begin with Barbara. It begins 30 years ago, at a market stand in a neighborhood near New York City, when I was still Donna Solano, a recent widow with a 10-year-old girl and exactly $4,200 in the bank. My husband, Anthony, had died in a traffic accident. A cargo truck ran a red light. He was on his motorcycle, coming back from his shift at the textile factory. He didn't stand a chance. The driver didn't even stop. I was left alone, with Caroline, with debts, with a future that looked like a dead end. The first few weeks were the worst. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I stared at the ceiling of our 2-room apartment in a lower Manhattan neighborhood and wondered how we were going to survive. The small insurance check they gave me barely covered the rent. Anthony's relatives disappeared after the funeral. No one wanted to take on 2 more mouths to feed. One afternoon, while emptying Anthony's closet, I found something. A wooden box I had never seen. Inside were fabrics, scraps of cotton, linen, silk. He had saved them from the factory, pieces they were going to throw away. I also found needles, colored threads, and a note written in his handwriting. For when you decide to make those tablecloths you loved so much. Anthony knew that as a child I had learned to embroider with my grandmother in Arizona. Flowers, birds, geometric patterns. Patterns she taught me patiently while telling me stories of her own life. That night I made a decision. I wasn't going to stay crying. I wasn't going to wait for someone to rescue me. I was going to rescue myself. I spent 3 weeks embroidering my first tablecloth. a design of yellow sunflowers on a cream background. Every stitch was a prayer, every flower a promise that Caroline and I would get ahead. I sold it at the market for $300. An older woman bought it for her daughter's birthday. When she paid me, she said, "You have hands of gold, young lady." They weren't hands of gold. They were tired hands, with calluses and scars. But they were my hands, and they could create something beautiful. For 5 years, I worked like that, from dawn to dusk. I embroidered at night after Caroline fell asleep. I sold on weekends at different farmers' markets in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I went wherever I could. I carried my tablecloths in cloth bags, took 2 buses, and set up in front of a borrowed stand that cost me $100 a day. Little by little, things improved. I started receiving special orders, tablecloths for weddings, napkins for restaurants. Even some small hotels commissioned complete sets. I hired 2 women from the building to help me. I paid them by the piece. Everyone won. By the time Caroline turned 15, we already had a small workshop, 6 sewing machines, 10 embroiderers. I rented a space on Fifth Avenue and put up a sign, Texas Textiles. Why Texas if I'm from New York? Because that was the nickname Anthony gave me. He used to say I shone like the Texas sun. It was my way of keeping him alive in my work. The years passed. Caroline grew up. She studied business administration at a public university. She was smart, organized, a dreamer. Sometimes I saw her reviewing my accounting books and felt a pride so great it choked me up. She was my reason for existing, my engine, my everything. By the time she turned 25, Texas Textiles was no longer a small workshop. It was a formal company, 45 employees, contracts with hotel chains, exports to Florida and Nevada. We had moved from embroidered tablecloths to luxury bedding, towels with exclusive designs, custom curtains. I never remarried. There were suitors, yes, good men who invited me to dinner, who brought me flowers. But I was married to my work, to my daughter. To that promise I made to Anthony in front of his grave, I'm going to give her the life you wanted for her. And I did it. Caroline never went hungry. She never lacked clothes. She never had to quit school. When she graduated, I cried in the front row. When she got her first job as an accountant at a logistics company, we toasted with cheap champagne in our living room. My house. Because by then I had bought one. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small backyard with purple climbing roses. In the Upper East Side neighborhood, nothing ostentatious, but it was mine, mortgage-free, owing nothing to anyone. Life was good, or so I thought. Everything changed 5 years ago, when Caroline came home one afternoon with sparkling eyes and introduced me to Robert. He was a sales manager at the company where she worked, 32 years old, good-looking, educated. He wore pressed shirts and polished shoes. He talked about projects, investments, travel. I liked him at first. He seemed ambitious, hard-working. My daughter liked him, and her eyes sparkled when she looked at him. "Mom," Caroline told me that night, after Robert left. "I think he's the one." And I, silly me, was happy. Because every mother wants to see her daughter in love. Every mother wants her daughter to have what she couldn't keep. They got married a year later. A simple wedding in a garden in California. 100 guests. A wedding singer. A 3-tiered cake. I paid for everything happily. She was the only family Caroline had. Her father couldn't be there, but I was there for both of us. It was at that wedding that I met Barbara, Robert's younger sister, 38 years old, divorced, childless. She arrived in a red dress that drew too much attention, perfect makeup, long nails painted black. She moved as if the world owed her something. From the first moment, Something about her made me uncomfortable. The way she looked at my house when she came for the wedding, the way she touched things as if evaluating their price, the way she asked me with a sweet, venomous smile, "And you paid for all of this yourself, Donna? How impressive for someone of your generation, of my generation." As if at 62 I was a relic who should be sitting around knitting and not running a company. But I swallowed the discomfort. She was my son-in-law's sister. Family. And family is respected. If I had known then what I know now, I would have thrown her out of my house that very day. Because Barbara didn't come into my life by chance. She came with a plan, and I, unknowingly, had just opened the door to the wolf. The first few months after the wedding were normal. Caroline and Robert moved into an apartment in the Chicago area. I visited them on Sundays, brought food, and we shared coffee. Robert continued to be kind, attentive. My daughter seemed happy. Barbara appeared in the third week. She knocked on my door one Tuesday afternoon. I had just returned from the factory, my feet were swollen, and all I wanted was to take off my shoes and make myself some chamomile tea. I opened the door, and there she was, with that smile I was beginning to recognize. "Donna, forgive me for coming unannounced," she said, entering before I invited her. "I was just passing by and thought, why not visit my sister-in-law? We're family now, aren't we?" Family. That word she would use as a master key to enter my life. She sat in my living room as if it were her own house. She looked at the paintings, the photos, the antique cabinet I had inherited from my grandmother. Her eyes moved, calculating, measuring, appraising. "What a lovely house," she said. "It must be worth good money here in the Upper East Side. Did you buy it long ago?" 12 years ago, I replied, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "And did you pay in full, or do you have a mortgage?" The question hit me like a bucket of cold water. Who asks those things on a first visit? But Barbara made it seem natural, like simple curiosity. "In full," I said curtly. I saw her eyebrows barely raise, as if she had confirmed something she already suspected. "Wow, your tablecloth business must be doing well." Tablecloth business. As if 30 years of work were a hobby. As if Texas textiles were a flea market stand. "We don't just make tablecloths anymore," I corrected, trying to keep my voice friendly. "We have contracts with hotels, hospitals, spas, industrial production." "Oh, right, she said, taking out her cell phone. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Would you let me take a photo of that painting? I have a decorator friend who would love to see the style of your house." She didn't wait for my answer. She was already taking photos. First the painting, then casually the entire living room. Then she got up and went to the dining room. Click. Another photo. Click. The bookshelf with my documents. "Barbara, what are you doing?" I asked, following her. "Oh, I'm sorry, your house is so pretty. I love the style." "Is that your desk?" She had entered my study, my private space, where I kept my computer, my files, the company documents. I had left some bank statements on the desk, invoices pending review. "Yes, but—" Click. She photographed the entire desk. Discreetly, but she did it. "Barbara, please, that's private." "Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize," she said, putting away her phone with an innocent smile. "It's the habit of taking pictures of everything. You know how it is." I sat down with her to have coffee. For an hour, she asked me questions, all seemingly innocent, all poisoned. How many employees did I have? How much did I pay them? How did I handle payroll? Did I have an accountant? Did I pay all my taxes? Who was my main supplier? How did I get the contracts with the hotels? Every question was a knife disguised as curiosity. I'm just so impressed, she said. A woman your age, widowed, carrying all this on your own. It must be very difficult to manage so many numbers, right? Sometimes I wonder if you don't get confused with so many accounts. Your age. As if at 62 my brain no longer worked. I manage just fine, I replied dryly. Of course, of course. Although you know how it is with business. There are always, how should I put it, grey areas, ways to move money around to pay less in taxes. It's normal. Everyone does it. She was setting a trap for me. She wanted me to admit something, anything she could use later. I pay all my taxes in full, I said firmly. I have nothing to hide. Of course not, she said, smiling. I'm just saying if you ever need advice or help with something delicate, I have contacts, people who know how to move in those circles. What circles? What was this woman talking about? After she left, I sat in my living room with a strange feeling in my stomach, like when you know something is wrong but you can't quite pinpoint what it is. But that was only the first visit. Barbara came back, over and over again, always with some excuse, that she was in the neighborhood, that she wanted to see her sister-in-law, that Robert had asked her to stop by and say hello. Every visit was the same. Questions disguised as friendly chat, casual photos of my house, comments about how well I was doing financially, insinuations that it was suspicious for a widow to have so much money. One day she arrived with a folder. Look, Donna, I brought you this, she said, taking out some brochures. They are investment funds, very safe. I work part-time as a financial advisor and thought you might be interested. With all the money you have saved, you could multiply it. How did she know how much money I had saved? I'm not interested, I said. Just take a look. You can see the returns here. If you give me your bank statements, I can do a personalized analysis for you free of charge. She wanted my bank statements. She wanted access to my numbers. No, thank you. Her smile hardened for just a second. Then it returned, wide and fake. Whatever you want. I was just trying to help. Help, you know. As family. 3 months after that conversation, Caroline and Robert came for dinner. I noticed something odd. My daughter was quiet. Robert, too. They ate in silence, exchanging looks that I couldn't decipher. Is something wrong? I asked. Caroline looked at her husband. He nodded, as if giving her permission to speak. Mum, my daughter said, fiddling with the napkin, Robert and I have been talking about your company. My blood ran cold. What about my company? Well, Barbara mentioned some things to us, and we got worried. Barbara. Of course. What things? I asked, though I already guessed the answer. She says the numbers don't add up, Robert intervened, that a company your size should be generating more profit, that maybe, I don't know, maybe your accountant is stealing from you, or maybe you have expenses you don't declare. I couldn't believe it. My own daughter, doubting me because of that woman's words. Caroline, I said, trying to stay calm, my company is perfectly in order. I have annual audits. Everything is legal. I know, Mum, but what? But Barbara says you should let me look at the books, that I studied accounting, that I could help you find irregularities. There it was, the real goal. They wanted access to my accounts, to my numbers, to everything. My company is none of Barbara's business, I said, feeling the rage rise in my throat. And it's not your business either, Caroline. It's my work, my effort. Mum, don't be mad. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. I got up from the table. Robert and Caroline left shortly after. She tried to hug me. I let her, but something between us was broken. That night, alone in my house, I cried for the first time in years, because I understood that Barbara didn't just want my money. She wanted to destroy my relationship with my daughter, and she was succeeding. But what I didn't know was that this was only the beginning. The real attack had not yet begun. The following weeks were a silent nightmare. Barbara no longer came to my house. She no longer needed to. She had planted the seed of doubt in my daughter's mind, and now she just had to water it and wait for it to grow. Caroline started calling me less. Our Sunday conversations became tense, full of awkward silences. I asked how she was. She replied in monosyllables. I told her about the company. She changed the subject. It was like talking to a stranger who shared my daughter's face. One Tuesday morning, while driving to the factory, I noticed something strange. A grey sedan had been following me for 3 blocks. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, but when I turned onto a street that wasn't my usual route, the car did the same. They were following me. My heart leaped. I sped up a little. The car did too. I braked at a red light, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I looked in the rearview mirror. A man about 40 years old, dark cap, sunglasses. He was holding something that looked like a camera. He was taking my picture. When the light changed, I pulled away quickly and took a different route. I took unnecessary turns. I entered a parking lot. I left through another way. I finally lost the grey sedan, but the damage was done. I no longer felt safe, not even in my own car. I arrived at the factory with my nerves shattered. My assistant, Sophie, a 25-year-old girl who had been working with me for 3 years, immediately noticed my state. Mrs. Solano, are you feeling well? You look very pale. I told her about the car. She frowned, worried. Do you want us to call the police? No, I said, although I didn't know why. Maybe I'm just paranoid. But I wasn't paranoid. 2 days later, I saw the same car parked in front of my house when I went out to buy groceries. The driver pretended to read the newspaper. When he saw me looking at him, he started the engine and drove away. I was being watched. But by whom? And why? The answer came a week later, when my accountant, old Mr. Stevens, called me in a trembling voice. Donna, I need to talk to you. It's urgent. We met in his office that same afternoon. Mr. Stevens was 68 years old. He had been managing the finances of Texas Textiles for 15 years. He was a meticulous, honest man, one of those who checks every number 3 times before signing it. He was sweating when I arrived. What's wrong, Stephen? Someone came to the bank today, he said, loosening his tie. A woman. She said she was a relative of yours. She asked for information about the company accounts. My heart sank. What woman? She didn't give her full name. She just said she was your sister-in-law, that she was worried about you, that she had noticed strange movements and wanted to verify that everything was in order. Barbara. Again. And they gave her information? Mr. Stevens shook his head. No. The manager sent her packing. He told her that without your written authorization, he couldn't give her anything. But Donna, she tried to bribe the teller. She offered her $5,000 for copies of your bank statements. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. Not only was she watching me, she was trying to buy bank information. Did the teller accept? No, thank God. The girl is honest. But she came to report it to me, and I'm coming to report it to you. I remained silent, processing. Barbara was playing dirty, very dirty. There's something else, Mr. Stevens continued, taking out a folder. I've been receiving calls. People asking about you. They say they are IRS auditors, that they are investigating irregularities in your tax returns. The IRS? But I pay everything correctly. I know, that's why it doesn't make sense. I called the IRS office directly. There is no open investigation against you. These calls are fake. Fake? Someone is impersonating tax authorities to intimidate me, to make me release information, or to make you make a mistake out of panic. It was a hunt, an organized, calculated hunt, designed to catch me in some lie or irregularity that didn't even exist. Stephen, what is going on? He looked at me sadly. Someone wants to destroy you, Donna, and they have resources. This is not one person acting alone. This is professional. I returned home that afternoon with a knot in my stomach. I turned on the computer and searched on Google. Private investigators, New York City. Dozens of pages appeared. Agencies offering discreet investigations, personalized surveillance, evidence collection. Barbara had hired investigators for me. I was sure. And not only that, she was fabricating evidence, inventing irregularities, creating a narrative where I was the villain. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed up in the living room looking at the photos of Caroline on the wall. My girl, my reason for living, the daughter I had worked for 30 years without rest. And now that same daughter doubted me. The final blow came 3 weeks later. Barbara called a family meeting. At Caroline's house, a Sunday afternoon. The message I received from my daughter was cold, formal. Mum, we need to talk. Sunday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Please don't be late. It's important. I arrived on time. Caroline opened the door, but she didn't hug me. She just gestured toward the living room with a nod. Robert was sitting on the large sofa. Barbara was in the chair opposite, legs crossed, holding a thick folder. There was no coffee prepared. There were no cookies. There was no love in that house. Sit down, Mum, Caroline said. I sat down. I felt like I was at a trial. Donna, Barbara began without preamble, we've been investigating for months, and we found very disturbing things. She opened the folder. She pulled out printed sheets. Bank statements I had never seen, contracts with signatures that looked like mine, but were not. Invoices from ghost companies. It says here you paid $1,200,000 to a company called Pacific Distributor, Barbara read. That company doesn't exist. It's a front. You used fake invoices to deduct taxes. That's not true, I said, feeling my voice break. I don't know that company. Your signature is here, she said, showing me the document. It was my signature, or a perfect forgery. There's more here, she continued. Unjustified cash withdrawals, $3,800,000 in the last 2 years. Where did that money go, Donna? To payroll, to suppliers, to... There are no receipts, she interrupted. There are no vouchers. There is nothing, just money that disappears. I looked at my daughter. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. Mum, Caroline said, her voice breaking. Why didn't you tell us you were having problems with the company? We could have helped. I don't have problems with the company, I managed to say. Everything is in order. This is a lie. Barbara is lying. I'm lying? Barbara stood up, offended. Me? Donna, the proof is right here. Official documents, bank statements, your own signature. That is not my signature. Then who forged it? Me? Why would I do that? I have nothing to gain. But she did. I knew it at that moment. I don't know how, but I knew it. Barbara wanted something. She wanted my company. She wanted my money. She wanted to destroy me. Mum, Robert said for the first time. We just want to protect Caroline. She is your sole heir. If you have legal problems, those problems are going to fall on her. There it was, the real intention. They wanted me to sign something. That's why, Barbara continued, taking out another document, we have prepared this. It's a transfer of authority. You sign the company over to Caroline temporarily until this whole matter is cleared up. That way she is protected, and so are you. I won't sign anything, I said, getting to my feet. Mum, please. No! My voice came out louder than I intended. I won't sign anything. I haven't done anything wrong, and I won't hand over my life's work to anyone. Barbara smiled, a cold, triumphant smile. Then we'll see you in court, Donna, because if you don't want to resolve this in the family, we'll resolve it with lawyers. And I warn you, you won't like the result. I left that house with my legs trembling. Caroline called out my name from the door, but I didn't stop. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't see that doubt in her eyes. That night, sitting alone in my kitchen, with a cup of tea cooling in my hands, I hit rock bottom. 67 years. A lifetime of honest work, and now my own daughter saw me as a thief. I cried until I had no more tears left, until only a cold void remained in my chest. And in that void, something new began to grow. Rage. The following days were the darkest of my life. Worse than when I buried Anthony. Worse than those nights when I didn't know how I was going to feed Caroline. Because this time, I wasn't fighting poverty or bad luck. I was fighting betrayal. I didn't eat well for a week. I lost 8 pounds. My employees asked if I was sick. Sophie brought me chicken soup that I barely tasted. Mr. Stevens looked at me worriedly every time we reviewed numbers because he saw me lost, absent. Caroline didn't call. Not once. I didn't call her either. What was I going to say to her? How do you explain to your daughter that the woman poisoning her mind is a professional liar? How do you compete against someone who has the perfect poison? One afternoon, while drinking coffee alone in my kitchen, the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press the green button. Mrs. Solano? It was a woman's voice, young, nervous. Yes? Who is speaking? My name is Patricia. I work at, well, I used to work at a private investigation agency, Omega Security and Analysis. My skin prickled. I don't know if you know, Patricia continued, speaking fast as if she were afraid. But someone hired our services to investigate you. A woman, Barbara Ortega. My sister-in-law. I know, I said dryly. Ma'am, I quit 2 days ago because what they asked me to do wasn't right. It wasn't legal, and I can't keep quiet. What did they ask you to do? Patricia took a deep breath. Falsify documents, alter bank statements, create evidence of transactions that never existed. My boss accepted because she paid very well, $150,000. But I can't be part of that. You don't deserve what they're doing to you. I felt my heart pounding in my ears. Do you have proof of that? I have emails, recordings of conversations with my boss, and I have the original versions of the documents before they altered them. Everything is saved on my computer. Why are you helping me? You don't know me. Because my mum is also a business owner, Patricia said, and her voice broke. And I wouldn't let anyone do this to her. We arranged to meet the next day at a coffee shop downtown. Patricia arrived with a backpack full of folders, a flash drive, and a face full of guilt. Here is everything, she said, handing me the flash drive. The original contracts, the ones they altered, the emails where Barbara explained exactly what she needed to falsify. and the recordings where my ex-boss promised her he would make you look like a criminal. I reviewed the documents that same night. Every page was a stab. The bank statements Barbara had shown at the family meeting were manipulated. They had added fake transactions. They had invented withdrawals I never made. They had created ghost companies with my name. Everything was a lie, a perfectly constructed lie. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was reading an email Patricia had included, an email Barbara sent to her boss at Omega Security. I don't care how much it costs. I need that old woman to be completely discredited. I want her to lose her company. I want her own daughter to see her as the swindler she is. And when she is destroyed, when she has nothing and no one, I will be there to save my sister-in-law from the disaster her mother created. 50% of that company will belong to me. It's mine. I just have to be patient. I read that email 5 times. Every word was a hammer blow. Barbara didn't just want to humiliate me. She didn't just want my company. She wanted my total destruction. She wanted my daughter to hate me. She wanted me to be left alone in ruin, with nothing to live for. And she almost succeeded. Because 2 days later, Barbara took the next step. I received a summons, legal, official, with stamps and signatures. They were suing me for tax fraud, embezzlement of funds, and falsification of documents. The plaintiff, Barbara Ortega, representing the interests of Caroline Solano Ramirez, direct and affected heir. She was using my daughter's name to sue me. I called Caroline for the first time in 3 weeks. She answered on the 5th ring. "Mum?" "Caroline, did you know that Barbara is suing me?" Silence. "Caroline, did you know?" "Robert says it's for the best," she whispered. "He says if we don't do something legal, you're going to end up in jail and I'm going to be left with nothing." "Your husband is lying. Barbara is lying. All of this is a trap, honey. A trap to steal from me." "Mum, stop it." Her voice sounded tired. "Stop lying. Barbara showed me everything. The documents, the accounts. Your signature is right there. You can't keep denying it." "That's not my signature. They falsified everything." "And why would someone do that? Why would Barbara spend her money investigating you if she didn't have a reason?" I had no answer for that, or at least not one my daughter wanted to hear. "Caroline, please. I'm your mother. When have I ever lied to you?" Another long, painful silence. "I don't know, Mum," she finally said. "I don't know what to believe anymore." And she hung up. I was left with the phone in my hand, staring at the black screen. I felt something inside me break completely. It wasn't my heart. It was worse. It was my hope. That night, Barbara uploaded a post to Facebook. I saw it because a distant cousin sent me a screenshot, worried. The post read, "Sometimes the closest family is the one that disappoints you the most. When you discover that someone you trusted has been stealing from you for years, it hurts. But you have to have the courage to report it, even if it's your own family. Justice for everyone. No more abuse." It had 237 likes. 43 comments from people who didn't know me but already hated me. How awful that happened to you. Older people sometimes get greedy. Well done for reporting it. Family or not. A thief is a thief. Barbara was destroying me publicly, and I couldn't do anything. If I responded, I would look desperate. If I didn't respond, I would look guilty. I was trapped. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 months later. My lawyer, Mr. Matthew Fields, a 50-year-old man with 20 years of experience in commercial law, reviewed the documents Barbara had presented. "This is very well fabricated," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Can I win? We can fight. We have arguments. But Donna, I'm going to be honest with you. These types of cases are complicated. The burden of proof falls on you to show that the documents are fake, and that can take months, even years. And in the meantime, your reputation is going to be destroyed. Your clients will doubt you. Your employees will be afraid. And your family, and he paused. Your family is already divided. I left the lawyer's office feeling like I was walking on quicksand. Every step sank me deeper. That night, I sat on the floor of my living room surrounded by photos of Caroline, her first day of school, her graduation, her wedding. Every photo was a reminder of everything I had lost. And then I thought of Anthony, my husband, the man who had loved me unconditionally, the one who always told me, "Donna, you are stronger than you think. When you fall down, you get up. And when they knock you down again, you get up stronger." Anthony would be furious if he saw me now, defeated, surrendered. No, I wasn't going to give up. If Barbara wanted a war, she would get a war. But this time, I would set the rules. I wiped my tears. I took a deep breath, and I picked up my phone. I dialed Mr. Matthews' number. "Mr. Fields," I said when he answered, "I need you to hire someone, a forensic investigator. But not just anyone. The best you can find. Someone who can trace every lie Barbara has constructed." "That's going to be expensive, Donna." "I don't care. Sell what you have to sell. But find him." There was a pause. "Are you sure?" More sure than I've ever been in my life. Because I had understood something. Barbara made a mistake. She underestimated me. She thought I was a weak old woman who would break with the first threat. She thought I would surrender. But she didn't know who Donna Ramirez Solano really was. I was the woman who had built an empire with broken hands, the one who had buried her husband and moved on, the one who had raised a daughter alone in a city that doesn't forgive. And if I had learned anything in 67 years of life, it was this. When they take everything from you, you become dangerous, because you have nothing left to lose. 3 days after that call, I met Aaron Smith. Mr. Fields met me at his office on a Friday morning. When I arrived, a man was sitting across the desk, about 45 years old, grey hair at the temples, discreet but well-cut suit. He had the look of someone who has seen too much and is no longer surprised by anything. "Donna, this is Aaron Smith," Matthew introduced. "Digital forensic investigator. He worked for 15 years at the Attorney General's office. Now he works independently." Aaron stood up and extended his hand to me. His grip was firm but not aggressive. "Mrs. Solano," he said, "Mr. Fields brought me up to speed on your situation. And I have to tell you something. I've seen many fraud cases in my career, but this one is particularly elaborate." We sat down. Aaron opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. "See this?" He pointed to a scanned document. "It's one of the bank statements your sister-in-law presented as evidence. At first glance, it looks legitimate. But if we zoom in here," he zoomed in on a section. "See this font? Times New Roman 12 point. Banks don't use Times New Roman in their digital statements. They use Arial or Helvetica. This document was edited in Word or Photoshop. I felt a relief so great it almost choked me. Can you prove it?" "I can prove much more than that," Aaron said. "But I need time. And I need access to everything. Your real bank accounts, your files, your emails. Everything that can help me reconstruct the truth." "You will have it." Aaron leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Solano, before we start, I need you to understand something. These types of investigations are neither quick nor cheap. I'm going to have to trace every document, every transaction, every email. I'm going to have to interview people, maybe even infiltrate circles to get information. We're talking about $60,000 minimum. maybe more. I'll pay it. And there's something more important, he continued. Once I start digging, I'm going to find everything, the good and the bad. If there is something in your company that is not in order, however small, I will discover it. And I will have to tell you and Mr. Fields. Are you prepared for that? I looked him straight in the eye. I have nothing to hide. He smiled slightly. Then let's get started. For the next 6 weeks, I pretended to be defeated. It was part of the plan. Matthew had advised me, let Barbara get overconfident. Let her think she won. I played my part. I stopped answering Caroline's calls. When my daughter looked for me, I spoke in a tired, resigned voice. I told her that maybe she was right, that maybe I had made mistakes, that I was old and confused. Caroline cried when she heard me like that, but she didn't come to see me. Robert wouldn't allow it. Barbara, for her part, was triumphant. I saw her on the street one afternoon, leaving an expensive restaurant with some friends. She was laughing loudly, gesturing with her hands, telling some story that made them all giggle. When she saw me, her smile widened. She waved at me, condescendingly, like you greet someone who no longer poses any threat. Perfect. While she was celebrating, Aaron was working. He reported to me every 3 days, always in discreet places. Isolated coffee shops, parks, empty parking lots, never in his office or mine. I found something interesting, he told me at our third meeting. Your sister-in-law doesn't have the money she pretends to have. Her personal bank account never exceeds $40,000. She lives in a rented apartment. Her car is financed. And yet she spent $150,000 hiring Omega Security. Where did she get that money? From a foundation, Aaron said, showing me printed documents. United Hands for Children Foundation, a charitable organization that supposedly helps underprivileged children. Your sister-in-law is the administrative director and has been diverting funds for 2 years. I was stunned. She's stealing money from a children's foundation? Not only that, Aaron continued. She used fake invoices to justify those expenses. Invoices that include your name, Mrs. Solano. Barbara made it look like you sold services to the foundation that you never provided. Services for $400,000. What? If this comes to light, Mrs. Solano, she won't just accuse you of fraud in your company. She'll put you in a scandal for diverting funds from a charitable organization. It's the perfect crime. She steals, but you appear as the culprit. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Do you have proof? I have the foundation's bank records. I have the fake invoices. I have emails where she orders her foundation accountant to process payments to ghost companies. And I have something better. He took out his phone and showed me an audio recording. This is a conversation between your sister-in-law and her accountant. I recorded it 2 days ago. Listen. He pressed play. Barbara's voice was unmistakable. I don't care how you do it, Fernando. I need those 200,000 to disappear from the register. And you list them as consulting services from that old woman. When this whole thing explodes, she'll be so far under that no one will doubt she stole from the foundation too. But Barbara, if we get audited, we won't get audited. No one audits small foundations. And if they do, you have the documents that protect your butt. Mine too. The only one who will fall is Donna. Aaron stopped the audio. She's not just falsely accusing you. She's framing you for her own crimes. My hands were shaking. What else do you have? Enough to bury her, Aaron said. But I need 2 more weeks. I want to trace every dollar she diverted, every document she falsified. And I want to find the connection with Omega Security. Because if I can prove that she paid with stolen money to fabricate evidence against you, that is conspiracy. It's a federal crime. Do it. 2 weeks later, Aaron arrived with a box of files. "I have everything now," he said, emptying the box onto Matthew's desk. "Here is the complete evidence. Barbara Ortega diverted $740,000 from the foundation in the last 2 years. She used $150,000 to hire the private investigators. Another $200,000 she put into her personal account through transfers disguised as expense reimbursements. The rest she used to pay lawyers, bribes, and fabricate documents." Matthew reviewed every paper with an eagle eye. "This is enough for an arrest warrant," he said. "Fraud, falsification, embezzlement of funds. We are talking about 8 to 10 years in prison." "And what about Robert?" I asked. "My daughter's husband." Aaron shook his head. "I didn't find evidence that he was directly involved, but your sister-in-law used his name on some documents. Electronic signature. Robert appears as a witness on several fake foundation contracts. He can plead ignorance, but he will still have legal problems. Minor charges as an involuntary accomplice, at minimum." I looked at all those documents. Every page was a bomb, every email a grenade, and I had the whole arsenal. "When can we act?" I asked. Matthew looked at his calendar. "The preliminary hearing for your case is in 3 weeks, but I would recommend not waiting that long. If we present this to the district attorney now, they can detain her sooner. We prevent her from destroying evidence." "No," I said firmly. "I don't want to detain her now." Both of them looked at me confused. "Mrs. Solano, I want to do it in public," I explained. "Barbara humiliated me in front of my family, my friends, my employees. I want everyone to see the truth, everyone at the same time." "What do you propose?" I smiled for the first time in months, and it wasn't a kind smile. "I'm going to host my New Year's Eve party, like every year. I'm going to invite everyone, Barbara too, and when she's there, confident, believing she has already won, then we're going to crush her." Matthew frowned. "That's risky." "I know," I said, "but I need my daughter to see the truth with her own eyes, for Caroline to understand what kind of viper has been manipulating her. If we do this in private, Barbara is going to convince her that it's a conspiracy. But if it happens in public, with authorities present, with irrefutable proof, there will be no way for my daughter to keep doubting me." Aaron nodded slowly. "I understand. But it will require perfect coordination, and you will need the authorities on your side. Can you arrange that?" "I have contacts at the district attorney's office," he said. "People who owe me favors. I can present the case unofficially, get them to prepare an arrest warrant. But we need exact timing. If Barbara smells anything fishy, she won't show up to that party." "She won't smell anything," I promised, "because I'm going to give her exactly what she wants. I'm going to invite her personally. I'm going to tell her I want to make peace, that I'm tired of fighting, that maybe she was right." "And she'll believe that?" "She'll want to believe it, because people like Barbara need to see their victims surrender. They need the moment of triumph, and I'm going to give it to her." There was a long silence. "All right," Matthew finally said. "We'll do it your way. But if something goes wrong—" "Nothing will go wrong," I said, feeling the strength return to my voice. "Because this time I hold the cards." And for the first time in months, I felt something I had forgotten. Hope. The transformation had to be perfect. Believable. If Barbara suspected even for a second that I was planning something, everything would fall apart. So I became the woman she wanted to see. A defeated old woman, confused, on the verge of collapse. I started dressing differently. I stopped wearing my silk blouses and pressed pants. I began going out in simpler, more careless clothes. I let my hair grow out a bit without styling it. When I went to the supermarket, I walked slower, with my shoulders slumped. At the factory, I faked mistakes. Nothing serious, just enough for my employees to worry. I forgot a meeting. I mixed up some dates on an order. Sophie, my assistant, looked at me sadly. "Mrs. Solano, are you okay?" she asked me one day. "You're not like this." "I'm tired, Sophie," I told her, and I didn't have to fake the exhaustion in my voice. Very tired. The news spread. Donna Solano was fading. The pressure was destroying her. Some employees started looking for other jobs, worried about the company's future. I understood. They had families to support. Barbara found out, of course. The city is small when it comes to gossip. One afternoon, while buying vegetables at a farmer's market, I saw her. She was with two friends, the same ones from the restaurant. When she saw me, she whispered something to one of them. The three of them looked at me with that mix of pity and satisfaction that only cruel people have. Barbara approached. "Donna," she said in a sugary voice, "what a surprise to see you here." "Hello, Barbara," I replied in a small voice, holding my bag of tomatoes. "How are you? You look different." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." "Of course, with everything that's happening," she said, feigning concern, "it must be very difficult for you. But you know, if you had been honest from the beginning, none of this would have happened." Her friends nodded, as if she were a saint and I were a repentant sinner. "Maybe you're right," I said, lowering my gaze. I saw her eyes shine. Triumph. Pure satisfaction. "Well, I hope you can accept reality soon," she continued, "for Caroline's sake. She's suffering a lot, you know. Seeing her cry over her mother breaks my heart." I wanted to slap her right there, but I squeezed the tomatoes in my hand and took a deep breath. "Yes," I managed to say, "for Caroline." She walked away, laughing with her friends. I stood in the middle of the market, trembling with rage, but also smiling inside, because I had just confirmed something. Barbara was completely confident. She thought she had won. Meanwhile, Aaron kept digging. We met every Tuesday at 6 o'clock in the morning at a coffee shop in the financial district. So early that no one saw us. So far from my usual routes that no one could connect us. "I found something big," he told me at our fifth meeting, opening his laptop. "Remember those private investigators your sister-in-law hired?" "Omega Security," I nodded. "Exactly. Well, guess what? That company already has a dirty history. They were shut down 3 years ago for fabricating evidence in a divorce case. The owner, a man named Gerald Newman, spent 6 months in prison. When he got out, he reopened under a different name. But it's the same operation. And Barbara knew that. Not only did she know it." Aaron turned the screen. "Look at this email. She specifically sought out an agency that was willing to work outside legal boundaries. Those are her exact words." I read the email. My sister-in-law had written, "I need an agency that understands that sometimes you have to be creative with the truth. I don't care about the methods. I only care about the results. Can you help me?" And Gerald Newman had responded, "Mrs. Ortega, we specialize in complex cases. We understand that justice sometimes needs a little push. Our services cost $150,000, but we guarantee results. It was an explicit contract to manufacture evidence." "This is pure gold," I said. "There's more," Aaron continued. "Patricia, the girl who contacted you, saved everything, every file before and after editing it. I have the original PDFs of your real bank statements, and I have the altered versions. I can show pixel by pixel where they added numbers, where they changed dates, where they inserted fake transactions. And the witnesses, Is Patricia going to testify? She's already signed a sworn statement. She is scared, but she is willing to testify. I also found the accountant for Omega Security, a guy named Hector Ruiz. He's nervous because he knows that when this explodes, he's going to be an accomplice. I offered him immunity. He accepted. He's going to testify that Barbara paid with foundation money. And the foundation? Who else knows about the theft? The president of the foundation is a businessman named Robert Harrison, 72 years old, an honest man who donated $5 million to start the project. I showed him the evidence unofficially. He is devastated. He believed in Barbara. He put her as director because she sold him a beautiful story about helping children. Is he going to report her? He already did. He filed a formal complaint with the district attorney, but I asked him to keep it frozen until you gave the signal. The economic crimes prosecutor is a friend of mine. He understands what we are doing. How much evidence do we have in total? Aaron closed the laptop and looked at me seriously. Mrs. Solano, we have enough to bury her. Diversion of $740,000, falsification of documents in 3 different cases, conspiracy to commit fraud, bribery, and misuse of another person's identity without consent. Your sister-in-law is going to prison. There's no doubt about that. The question is, how do you want it to happen? I want it to be public, I repeated. I want everyone to see. Then we need to coordinate with the district attorney's office. They have to be ready to act on the day of your party, with an arrest warrant in hand. And we need to know she's there, confident, present, without suspecting anything. Leave her to me. A week later, I called Caroline. My daughter sounded surprised to hear from me. Mum? Honey? I said in a weak, tired voice. I need to talk to you. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay, but I think you're right. I think I've been stubborn and proud, and maybe I did make mistakes. Caroline was quiet. I could hear her breathing. What do you mean? I want to make peace, I said. With you, with Robert, even with Barbara. I don't want to keep fighting. I'm old, Caroline, and tired, and I don't want to die fighting with my only daughter. I heard her voice break. Mom. I'm having my New Year's Eve party, like always, and I want you all to come. You, Robert, Barbara, everyone. I want to toast with you. I want to start the new year in peace. Are you serious? Very serious. I've already talked to my lawyer. I'm going to consider signing the company over to you. Barbara was right. It's the safest thing. There was a long pause. Then Caroline spoke, with tears in her voice. Thank you, Mum. Thank you for understanding. Will you come? Of course, I'll go. All 3 of us will go. Tell Barbara that I'm inviting her personally, that I want to apologize to her for doubting her intentions. I'll tell her. Mum, this means a lot to me. To me too, honey. I hung up and stared at the phone. I felt a pang of guilt for lying to my daughter, but it was necessary. Soon she would understand. 2 days later, Barbara called me. Her voice was poorly disguised, pure satisfaction. Donna, Caroline told me you invited me to your party. Yes, I said humbly. I want you to come. I want us to make peace. I'm glad you finally came to your senses, she said. You know, I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to protect my sister-in-law. Liar, hypocrite, viper. I know, I said, and I appreciate it. Really? And is it true that you're going to sign the company over? I'm considering it. My lawyer is preparing the papers. That's great, Donna. That's great. You'll see it's best for everyone. Barbara, there's something else. What? I want you to bring those investigators, the ones you hired. I want to meet them. I want to thank them for helping to uncover the truth. There was a pause, then laughter. Are you serious? Very serious. If I'm going to accept my responsibility, I want to do it properly, in front of everyone. Donna, I don't know if they... Please, it's important to me. Another pause. All right, I'll see if they can come. But I warn you, they are not cheap. They might want to charge for the appearance. It doesn't matter, I'll pay them. Okay, I'll bring them. When she hung up, I smiled. Barbara was going to bring her actors. She was going to stage another show. She was going to humiliate me once more, in front of everyone, or so she thought. Because what she didn't know was that I had also invited some agents. But mine were real, and they weren't coming to act. They were coming to arrest her. The party preparations were meticulous. Every detail had to be perfect, not only for aesthetics, but because I needed Barbara to feel completely secure. I hired the same band as always. I ordered the same menu as every year: turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, apple pie. I decorated the yard with the same yellow lights that my husband Anthony used to hang when he was alive. Everything had to look normal, familiar, harmless. But beneath that facade of normalcy was a military operation. 3 days before the party, I met with the economic crimes prosecutor, Mr. Richard Montoya. Matthew introduced us in his office. Montoya was a 50-year-old man with the serious face of someone who has seen too many criminals get away with it. Mrs. Solano, he said, shaking my hand. Aaron showed me the evidence. It is one of the best documented fraud cases I have seen in years. Is it enough to arrest her? It's enough to bury her, he corrected. We have conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement of funds from a charitable organization, falsification of official documents, bribery, and improper use of identity. We are talking about a minimum of 8 years in prison, probably more. And Robert? I asked. My daughter's husband. Montoya reviewed a folder. He appears as a witness on several foundation documents, electronic signature, but we didn't find evidence that he knew what his sister was doing. Legally, he can plead ignorance, although he will have to testify and probably face minor charges like negligence in document validation. Caroline is going to suffer a lot when this comes out. I know, Montoya said in a softer voice. That's why we're going to handle this delicately. The arrest will be quick, professional, nothing violent, but it has to be public, as you requested. Are you sure you want to do it this way? Completely sure. Very well. I will send 2 detectives and 2 plainclothes officers. They will be in plain clothes until the moment of the arrest. They will blend in with your guests. When you give the signal, I myself will enter with the arrest warrant. But Mrs. Solano, I need you to understand. Once this starts, there is no turning back. You cannot change your mind at the last minute. I will not change my mind. And what if your daughter gets angry with you? What if she accuses you of seeking revenge? My daughter has to see the truth, I said firmly. And the truth is that Barbara is a criminal. If Caroline hates me for that, I will have to live with it. But I will not let that woman continue to destroy lives. Montoya nodded, satisfied. Then it's a plan. The party is on Friday, December 30th, correct? At 7 o'clock in the evening, my agents will arrive at 6 o'clock and 30 minutes. I will give you an emergency number. When you are ready, send a message with the word "now." We will wait for the signal. Understood? Understood. The day of the party dawned clear. a perfect blue sky without clouds, as if even the weather was on my side. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep much. I spent the night going over the plan again and again, looking for flaws, anticipating problems. At 9 o'clock, the catering arrived. At 10 o'clock, the band. At 11 o'clock, the team of servers. Everything flowed. Sophie came to help me at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. "Mrs. Solano," she said, hugging me, "I don't know what's going on, but I want you to know that everyone at the factory is with you, whatever happens tonight." "How do you know something is going to happen?" She smiled. "Because I know you, and you are not the type of woman who gives up. Whatever you're planning, I trust you." I put on my best dress, a wine-coloured one that I had bought 2 years ago but had never worn. I fixed my hair. I put on makeup carefully. I wanted to look strong, dignified, not like the defeated woman I had been pretending to be. When I looked in the mirror, I saw Donna Solano, not the victim, the warrior. The guests began to arrive promptly at 7 o'clock. Employees, suppliers, lifelong friends. Mr. Stevens, my accountant, arrived with his wife. Sophie with her boyfriend, my neighbours, people who had been with me through thick and thin. At 7 o'clock and 20 minutes, the undercover agents arrived. Matthew discreetly pointed them out to me. 2 young women who looked like normal guests. 2 men in their mid-30s, dressed casually. They blended in perfectly. At 7 o'clock and 40 minutes, Caroline arrived. My heart skipped a beat when I saw her get out of the car. My daughter, my beautiful daughter. She was wearing an ivory dress and her hair down. She came with Robert, who looked uncomfortable, looking at the ground. Caroline hugged me, tightly, like she did when she was a child. "Mum," she whispered, "thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming, honey." "Are you really going to sign the papers?" "We'll see," I said, stroking her hair. "Tonight everything will become clear." She looked at me strangely, but didn't ask any more questions. At 7 o'clock and 50 minutes, Barbara arrived. She got out of an Uber with that arrogance that characterized her. She was wearing a tight black dress, high heels, her hair tied back in a perfect bun. Behind her, 2 men. I recognized them from the description Aaron had given me. Actors Barbara had hired to pose as investigators. One was tall, about 50 years old, with glasses and a leather briefcase. The other was younger, in his 30s. Cheap suit, but well pressed. Both had that fake smile of someone being paid to play a role. Barbara saw me and opened her arms dramatically. "Donna, how nice to see you. And what a beautiful party." "Thanks for coming," I said, forcing a smile. "And look, I brought the boys," she said, pointing to the 2 men. "They were the ones who investigated your case. I thought it would be good for you to meet them." The investigators extended their hands to me. I shook them, feeling disgust. "Nice to meet you," the older one said. "I'm Mr. Vargas, and this is my associate, Mr. Ramos." "Neither Mr. nor associate, just cheap swindlers." "The pleasure is mine," I lied. "Would you like something to drink?" "Whatever you have is fine," Barbara said, already walking toward the yard as if it were her party. Caroline approached me, confused. "Mum, why did you invite them?" "Because I need everyone to hear the truth, honey. The whole truth." "What do you mean?" "You'll know in a moment." The band was playing. People were eating, laughing, dancing. It was 8 o'clock and 30 minutes. The party was at its peak. Barbara was strolling among the guests, showing off. She was telling anyone who would listen how she had saved Caroline from her mother-in-law's bad decisions, how she had uncovered the fraud, how she had acted for the good of the family. I heard her tell one of my employees, It's sad, isn't it, to see how older people sometimes lose their judgment. But hey, that's what family is for, to protect each other. I saw how that employee, Rose, a woman who had been working with me for 20 years, pursed her lips in anger. She knew Barbara was lying, but she couldn't say anything. Not yet. At 8:55, I asked them to lower the music. I climbed onto a small platform we had set up for the musicians. I took the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," I said, and my voice resonated in the yard. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me for another year in this tradition that I love so much." Applause, smiles. Caroline looked at me from the front, proud. "This year has been difficult," I continued. "Very difficult. Many of you know what I've been through. The accusations, the doubts, the pain of feeling that the people you trust turn their backs on you." Barbara was smiling. She thought I was about to publicly surrender. "But tonight," I said, looking directly at her, "I want everyone to know the truth, the whole truth." Her smile wavered slightly. "Barbara," I said, pointing at her, "you accused me of fraud, of stealing, of falsifying documents, and you brought these gentlemen as proof of my crimes." The two actors straightened up, nervous. "But there's something everyone needs to know," I continued, feeling the adrenaline rush through my body. "These men are not investigators. They are actors, paid by you, with money you stole from a charitable foundation." The backyard fell into absolute silence. Barbara turned pale. "What? What are you saying?" "I'm telling the truth," I said in a firm voice. "And it's not me who's saying it. It's them." I pointed toward the entrance. The doors opened, and it wasn't her actors who walked in. It was Prosecutor Montoya, two uniformed detectives, and two police officers. Barbara turned toward them, her eyes wide. The two actors tried to back away, but the undercover agents had already surrounded them. "Barbara Ortega," Prosecutor Montoya said in a clear, strong voice, "you are under arrest for the crimes of fraud, embezzlement of funds, falsification of documents, and conspiracy." He took out the handcuffs. And at that moment, in front of 80 people, in front of my daughter, in front of everyone who had ever doubted me, Barbara Ortega was arrested. The yard erupted in murmurs. 80 people talking at the same time. Some were shouting. Others were taking out their phones to record. The band stopped playing. The servers froze with their trays in their hands. Barbara backed away, shaking her head. "No, no, no, no. This is a mistake. Donna, what did you do?" "What I had to do," I replied, stepping down from the platform. "Uncover the truth." The agents approached. Barbara raised her hands as if that could stop them. "Wait. I didn't do anything wrong. She is the criminal. She pointed an hysterical finger at me. "Ask these investigators. They have the proof." Prosecutor Montoya turned toward the two actors. "Are you private investigators?" The older one, Mr. Vargas, stammered. We... "Are you actors?" interrupted Aaron, who had just walked in with a laptop under his arm. "Edgar Fields and Mario Hayes. I hired them this morning for $2,000 each to come to this party, pretending to be investigators. Just like you hired them, Mrs. Ortega, to stage your show." Barbara looked at him with pure hatred. "Who the hell are you?" "Aaron Smith, forensic investigator. And I have here every dollar you diverted from the United Hands Foundation. Every document you falsified. Every email where you planned to destroy Mrs. Solano." He opened the laptop on a nearby table. The screen was projected onto a white wall that I had asked to be installed specifically for this. There, for everyone to see, the Foundation's bank statements appeared. The illegal transfers, The emails, one by one. Aaron's voice was clear, professional, devastating. On March 15th of last year, Barbara Ortega authorized a transfer of $50,000 from the foundation's account to a ghost company called Pacific Distributor. That company does not exist. The money ended up in her personal account. He showed the receipt, Barbara's signature, everything. On April 22nd, another transfer, $80,000. Same story. Ghost company, money directly into her pocket. On June 10th, he continued, Barbara paid $150,000 to the Omega Security and Analysis Agency to fabricate false evidence against Mrs. Solano. Here is the contract. Here is the email where she specifically asked for the documents to look authentic. The email I had already read appeared on the screen, but seeing it there, projected for everyone to read, was different. I don't care how much it costs. I need that old woman to be completely discredited. I heard the gasps of the people. I saw Mr. Stevens put his hand over his mouth. I saw Sophie crying with rage. But above all, I saw Caroline. My daughter was paralyzed, her hands on her chest, her eyes full of tears, staring at the screen as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Caroline, Barbara turned to her, desperate. Caroline, don't believe him. Your mother paid him to invent all this. Really, Aaron asked calmly. Then explain this. He pressed play on an audio. Barbara's voice filled the yard. I don't care how you do it, Fernando. I need those 200,000 to disappear from the register. And you list them as consulting services from that old woman. When this whole thing explodes, she'll be so far under that no one will doubt she stole from the foundation too. The silence was absolute. Heavy. Crushing. That conversation, Aaron said, was recorded 3 weeks ago. It's your voice, Mrs. Ortega. Your plan. Your crime. Barbara stumbled. Robert, who had been quiet all this time, took a step back, moving away from his sister as if she were burning. Barbara, he whispered. What did you do? Nothing. I didn't do anything, she screamed. This is a trap, a conspiracy. Donna has money. She has power. She bought all these. No one bought anything, Prosecutor Montoya interrupted, his voice stern. Mrs. Ortega, I have here an arrest warrant issued by the 3rd District Court. The charges are embezzlement of funds in the amount of $740,000, falsification of official documents in 3 different cases, conspiracy to commit fraud, and improper use of identity. Do you understand your rights? You're not arresting me. Barbara tried to run towards the exit. The 2 agents stopped her in 3 steps, holding her by the arms. She struggled, screamed, kicked. Let go of me. You don't have the right. We have every right, Montoya said, putting the handcuffs on her. And we have all the evidence. Mrs. Ortega has the right to remain silent. She has the right to an attorney. Anything she says can and will be used against her. Barbara looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Fear. Real, deep, devastating fear. Donna, she gasped. Donna, please, we can fix this. I'll give you everything back. I'll withdraw the lawsuit. I'll say I was wrong. Whatever. Please. I looked at her in silence. For months, she had humiliated me. She had destroyed my relationship with my daughter. She had tried to steal everything I had worked for. She had made me cry until I ran out of tears. And now she was begging. No, I said simply. Now you will face the consequences of what you did. The agents led her toward the exit. Barbara kept screaming, cursing, promising revenge. But with every step, her voice got smaller, weaker. When they put her in the patrol car, The yard was still silent. Then I heard a sob. Caroline. My daughter was on her knees in the grass, crying, her hands covering her face. Robert tried to touch her, but she pulled away. I approached slowly. I knelt beside her, ignoring the pain in my 67-year-old knees. Honey. Mum, she whimpered. Mum, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Shh. I hugged her, squeezing her against my chest. It's over. It's over. I accused you. I doubted you. I let her. I let that woman fill my head with lies. And you never did anything wrong. Never. Don't cry, Caroline. How can I not cry? She lifted her face, covered in tears and snot and pain. I am the worst daughter in the world. I betrayed you. I believed a stranger over you, my own mother. You are not the worst daughter, I said, wiping her tears with my thumbs. You're human. Barbara is very good at manipulating. That's what people like her do. They find your fears and use them against you. But I should have known. You couldn't have known. She falsified documents. She hired professionals. She created a perfect lie. No one blames you for believing her. I blame myself. I will blame myself for the rest of my life. I hugged her tighter. I cried with her. Right there, in the middle of 80 people, I let the tears fall. Tears of pain, yes, but also of relief, of liberation. Robert approached. He knelt down next to us. Mrs. Solano, he said, his voice broken. I have no words. My sister, I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know what she was doing. I know, I said. Aaron investigated it. He found no evidence that you were involved. But I signed documents. She used my name. My God, I'm an idiot. How did I not realize? Because you trusted your sister, just like Caroline trusted her. Am I going to be arrested too? He asked, and there was genuine terror in his eyes. The prosecutor says you'll probably have to testify, maybe face minor charges for negligence. But you are not a criminal, Robert. You were just manipulated. He put his hands over his face and wept. A grown man, crying like a child. Prosecutor Montoya approached us. Mrs. Solano, I need you to come to the DA's office tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning for a formal statement. And you too, young man, he looked at Robert. We need your testimony. We will be there, I said. Montoya nodded and left. The other guests began to approach, one by one, hugging me, asking for forgiveness. Those who doubted, congratulating me, those who always believed. Mr. Stevens hugged me tightly. I knew you were going to win, Donna. I always knew it. Sophie also hugged me, crying. Mom, you are the bravest woman I know. Rose, my 20-year employee, took my hands. We never doubted you, not for a second. The party did not continue. How could it? After what had just happened, no one felt like dancing. People began to leave little by little, each processing what they had witnessed. By 11 o'clock at night, only Caroline, Robert, and I remained. We sat at the patio table in silence, listening to the crickets, looking at the lights that still hung from the trees. What's going to happen now? Caroline asked in a small voice. Barbara will go to trial, I explained. According to Montoya, with all the evidence we have, she will probably accept a plea deal, 8 to 10 years in prison, full restitution of all the money she stole to the United Hands Foundation. 10 years, Caroline repeated. My God. She brought it on herself, Robert said bitterly. I can't believe that's my sister. The person I knew or thought I knew would never have done something like that. Greed changes people, I said. It turns them into monsters. Caroline took my hand. Mum, can you forgive me? I know I don't have the right to ask. I know I hurt you terribly, but is there any way for us to get back what we had? I looked into her eyes. My girl, my only daughter, the reason I had fought so hard. I already forgave you, Caroline. I forgave you from the very first moment you doubted me. Really, Al? Really, because you are my daughter, and a mother's heart doesn't break. It bends, it stretches, it hurts, but it doesn't break. She cried again, but this time they were different tears, tears of gratitude, of relief. I love you, Mum, and I love you, my darling, always. We stayed there until after midnight, talking, crying, healing. It wouldn't be easy. The wounds were deep. Trust would take time to fully return. But we were together, and that's what mattered. When they finally left, I stayed alone in my yard. The lights shone softly. The remnants of the party were still there. Empty plates, abandoned cups, napkins on the ground. I sat in my favorite chair, closed my eyes, and for the first time in months, I took a deep breath. Freedom, peace, justice. Anthony would be proud. I did it, my love, I whispered to the wind. I won. And somewhere in heaven, I was sure, my husband was smiling. 2 months later, the world looked different, not because the sun shone brighter or because the streets were different, but because I was different. Lighter. As if I had been carrying an invisible weight for so long that I didn't even feel it anymore, until I finally let it go. Barbara's trial was quick. Her lawyer, a nervous guy who sweated every time Aaron presented new evidence, advised her to accept a plea deal. 8.5 years in prison, full restitution of the $740,000 to the United Hands Foundation, and a public apology. The apology never came. At the final hearing, when the judge asked her if she had anything to say, Barbara just looked at me with cold hatred and muttered, "This isn't over." But it was over. The prison doors closed behind her on February 12th, and I slept through the night without nightmares for the first time in months. Robert and Caroline got divorced. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. My son-in-law was not a bad man, but his sister's shadow was too great. Every time Caroline looked at him, she saw Barbara's eyes. Every conversation was tainted by what had happened. They signed the papers one afternoon in March. I accompanied my daughter to the courthouse. When we left, she cried on my shoulder. "I feel like I failed, Mom. Another marriage that doesn't work in the family." "You didn't fail," I said, stroking her hair. "You survived, and that is much more important. Do you think I'll ever be able to trust anyone again?" "Yes, because you learned something that many people never learn, that people show you who they really are, and when they show you, you have to believe them." Caroline moved back home with me for 3 months, not because she needed it financially, but because she needed to heal. She needed to be a daughter again before she could be an independent adult again. Those weeks were the sweetest I had had in years. We had breakfast together every morning, coffee with pancakes. She told me about her work. I told her about the factory. At night, we watched old movies in the living room, curled up under the same blanket like when she was a child. One night, while watching a romantic comedy that made us laugh, Caroline paused the movie. "Mom, there's something I need to ask you." "Tell me." "Did you ever think about giving up? When everything got worse? When I turned my back on you? Did you ever just want to stop fighting?" I thought about those dark nights, about the crying that choked me, about the pain of feeling that my own daughter didn't believe in me. "Yes," I admitted. There were moments when I wanted to give up, when I thought maybe it would be easier to just sign everything, hand my company over to Barbara, and just disappear. And what stopped you? You? Me? You, Caroline. Because if I gave up, I was teaching my daughter that when things get tough, you surrender, that when you are falsely accused, you lower your head. And I didn't want you to learn that. I wanted you to see that it's worth fighting for the truth, that it's worth defending yourself, even when the whole world seems to be against you. Caroline hugged me and cried, not out of sadness, out of love. You are the best mum in the world, she whispered, and I was an idiot. You weren't an idiot. You were human. In May, Caroline finally found her own apartment. Small, cozy, in a trendy neighborhood. I helped her move. We carried boxes together, assembled furniture, hung pictures. It was a new beginning for her. The day we finished decorating, we sat in her new living room with 2 glasses of cheap wine, admiring our work. "Mum," Caroline said, "I want you to know something. I've been going to therapy." "Oh, really?" "Yes, because I realized that I have problems with trust, with boundaries, with allowing people to manipulate me, and I want to work on that. I don't want to be so naive again." "I'm glad you're doing that, honey. That's very brave of you." My therapist says that maybe deep down I wanted to believe Barbara because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if something happened to you, I would be completely alone. And when Barbara convinced me that you were doing bad things, it was like I was already preparing myself to lose you. Does that make sense? I nodded slowly. All the sense in the world. But the truth is, I was never alone. You were always there. Even when I didn't believe you, you were still my mum. You were still fighting for me. I will always fight for you, Caroline, until my last breath. We hugged, and in that embrace, we sealed something. A pact. A promise that what had happened had broken us. Yes, but it had also made us stronger. The company also changed. Texas textiles grew more that year than ever before. The story had gone viral. The media covered the case. 67-year-old business owner dismantles plot to steal her company. Warrior grandma defeats fraudulent sister-in-law in epic legal battle. I didn't like the attention, but it brought in customers. Lots of customers. People who wanted to work with someone who had shown integrity under fire. By June, I had to hire 15 more employees. We opened a second plant in another state. The numbers were better than ever. One afternoon, Mr. Stevens walked into my office with a proposal. "Donna, I've been thinking. You should consider succession." "Succession? Mr. Stevens, I don't plan on dying anytime soon." "That's not it," he laughed. "But you are 67 years old. Someday you're going to want to retire. And when that day comes, the company needs to be prepared." "What do you propose?" "That you give Caroline 30% of the company. That you bring her in as vice president. That she start learning the business from the inside. She has a head for numbers. And after everything that happened, I think she appreciates the value of honest work." I thought about that for a week. Then I called Caroline into my office. "Honey, I want to offer you something." I explained the proposal. 30% of Texas Textiles, a position as vice president, learning the business, eventually taking control when I retired. Caroline looked at me with wide eyes. "Mum, after everything that happened, do you trust me with this?" "I trust you precisely because of everything that happened," I said. "You learned a lesson that money can't buy. You learned to question, to verify, not to blindly trust. That makes you perfect for this job." "But I don't know anything about textiles." "I didn't either when I started. You learn. and I'll be here to teach you." Caroline accepted. She started working with me in July. It was difficult at first. She made mistakes, but she learned quickly. She had the same fire that I had at her age, the same determination. By October, she was managing the entire administrative side. By December, she had renegotiated 3 important contracts, saving the company almost $200,000. On the night of December 30th, 1 year after that memorable party, I organized another celebration. Smaller this time. Only 50 guests. Close people. People who really mattered. Caroline arrived early to help me prepare. We hung the lights together. We cooked together. We laughed together. At 8 o'clock at night, with everyone gathered, I took the microphone. "A year ago," I said, "in this very place I lived the most difficult and most liberating night of my life. Many of you were here. You saw it all. There were murmurs of agreement, complicit smiles. That night I learned something important. I learned that the truth always comes to light, that justice, although slow, eventually arrives, and that true family is not the one that shares your blood, but the one that stands by you when everything falls apart." I looked at Caroline. She had tears in her eyes. This year was not easy. There was pain, there were losses, but there was also growth. There was forgiveness. There was love. And so, tonight I want to toast, not to revenge, not to victory, but to second chances. I raised my glass. To learning from mistakes, to getting up after falling, to knowing when to fight and when to forgive, and to the people who never abandon us, even when we abandon ourselves. "Cheers!" everyone shouted in unison. We toasted. The music started. People danced. And I sat in my yard chair, watching my daughter dance with Sophie and Rose, laughing like I hadn't seen her laugh in years. Mr. Stevens sat beside me. "You did well, Donna. Anthony would be proud." "Thank you, Stephen." "Do you ever think about Barbara?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "I wonder if in that cell, she has reflected on what she did, if she has understood that greed leads nowhere." "And you? Did you forgive her?" I thought about that question, long and deeply. "I don't know if I forgave her," I finally said, "but I let her go. She no longer lives in my head rent-free, as the young people say. I no longer dedicate my energy to her, and I think that's the closest to forgiveness I'm going to get." Stephen nodded wisely. "That's enough." At midnight, when the chimes sounded, I hugged Caroline. "Happy New Year, Mum," she said. "Happy New Year, my love." "Do you know what the best thing about this year is?" "What?" "That I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to pretend that everything is fine when it's not. Because now it really is fine. It's us, together, like it should be, like it always should have been." That night, when everyone left and I was left alone cleaning up, I found a photo that had fallen off the table. It was from Caroline's wedding. There was Barbara, smiling at the camera in that red dress. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I tore it in half and threw it in the trash. Some chapters of life simply have to end. I went to sleep that night with a light heart, with the windows open to let in the fresh January air, with the certainty that I had done the right thing. And as I fell asleep, I thought of all the women who are going through what I went through, those who are being unjustly accused, those who are being manipulated by relatives poisoned by greed, those who feel alone, defeated, without a way out. And I wanted to tell them something. Don't give up. Fight. Seek the truth. And know that in the end, when the dust settles and the lies crumble, the only thing left standing is who you really are. I am Donna Ramirez Solano. I am 68 years old. I built an empire with my hands. I buried my husband and moved on. I raised a daughter alone. I faced betrayal and came out victorious. And if I could do it, you can too. Because true wealth is not in what you possess. It's in what you don't allow them to take from you. Your dignity, your truth, your strength. No one can steal that from you, unless you let them. And I will never let them. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching from. What part of this story resonated with you the most? Have you lived through something similar? Your story matters, and I would love to read it. Give this a thumbs up if you believe Donna did the right thing. And subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories that make you feel, that make you think, that remind you that it's never too late to defend yourself. Because here we share more than stories. We share lessons, we share strength, we share hope. See you in the next story. Take care. And remember, your truth is worth defending.